So technique for the two-arm swing. It's pretty simple really. Basically start with a roughly shoulder-width stance. Feet generally pointing forwards, as in you don't want them turned right out or anything like that. It's okay to have just a fraction of a turnout. Main thing is you want to make sure you've got enough room for the bell to swing in between your legs and you're nice and stable. So they're the main points to think about. From here, a really simple way to start. If you line the kettlebell handle up in between your heels, this is a good point to aim for just when you're starting to learn. So, for example, if I pick it up here, making sure that I'm bending at the hips, knees are soft, back straight, and just stand up. Then I can aim to put it back down in that position, but only go halfway. So the kettlebell goes behind my knees, and then I stand up. Behind my knees, halfway down to that point on the floor, standing up. If I start to make this a little bit faster, bring my hips through a little bit more quickly, you can now see that the kettlebell starts to swing. It's really important with your swing that you make sure your spine stays in neutral alignment throughout the whole movement. So basically you just want to think about hinging at the hips, keeping the spine in one straight line. So if I turn on the side, my spine should stay roughly in the same line throughout the whole movement. So I'm not looking up and bending my neck right back, and I'm not looking down and bending the neck forward. So keeping the spine straight is really important. The next thing that you want to think about is really using your hips and making sure the glutes are doing all the work. If your legs aren't extending and your hips aren't extending, so if you aren't bringing your hips right through, then there's a possibility that your lower back's going to take up the load instead. So make sure that you actually fully extend the hips at the top of the movement. So you can see, as I come through, straightening my legs and hips right out. What you don't want is to finish in any sort of position like this where there's any sort of bend at all in the hips or the knees. Straighten right up at the top. So they're really the main points that you want to look at for the two-arm swing as far as safety goes. The next thing you want to think about is having that hip-dominant movement. So thinking about your hips being locked on rails and moving backwards and forwards rather than up and down into a squat. So if I turn on the side, you can imagine that I've got a rail that my hips can't move off, so all I can do is go backwards and forwards. Of course, this doesn't mean you want to lock out your knees, you want to keep your knees soft throughout the movement. Just thinking about hips moving backwards and forwards. So that's really about it. That covers the main points of the two-arm swing.